Hello and welcome to my new series, An A to Z of the Ghosts of England. Here we take a haunted tour of the country, county by county, to see what lurks in the darkest corners of the map. In this episode, we continue to take a look at the ghosts of the county of Bedfordshire. Black Tom. On the junction of Tavistock Street, Union Street and Clapham Road is well known as the site of the execution and subsequent burial of a notorious highwayman known as Black Tom. The site is still known by some as Black Tom's grave. When he was buried, a stake had been driven through his heart in order to prevent his return from the grave. However, it doesn't seem to have worked. There are many tales of sightings of Black Tom, along with another unknown entity haunting the site, and one such story comes from the 1960s, when in broad daylight a man was seen staggering along the road with a disturbingly crooked neck, as if he had been hanged. Seconds later, the man vanished into thin air. In the 1980s, a man woke up in his bed to see a shadowy figure in the room, who he thought was an intruder. His shouts woke up his wife, and they both saw that the shadowy figure was wearing a black cloak and a floppy hat. It moved across the room to the opposite side before vanishing. They'd not heard about the legend of Black Tom until later on, and as their house was located near the site of his execution and burial, they were convinced that he had paid them a visit. Another account from the 1990s, where the witness saw someone again staggering along and he had mistaken him for a drunk in fancy dress, until he completely vanished without trace. Bedford Castle Mound. Bedford Castle was built in the 1100s by King Henry I, originally being handed to the Beauchamp family to manage due to their loyalty to the crown. It was taken by King John from William de Beauchamp as he rebelled against the king, and given to Fawkes de Brute, an Anglo-Norman leader who had been loyal to John. In 1224, Henry III was on the throne, and he had decided that the castle should be put back in the hands of William de Beauchamp, which Fawkes refused to do. King Henry III laid siege to the castle with the support of the Archbishop of Canterbury, while Fawkes sent word to the Pope in the hope that he would order the king to halt the attack. It is said that Henry had between 1,600 and 2,700 men storm the castle that was being held by 80 men and Fawkes' brother William. On the 14th of August, after a series of attacks by the king's men lasting 8 weeks, the castle finally fell and William and the garrison surrendered. Fawkes, after surrendering his other castles to the king, was sent into exile, and other than the 3 knights who agreed to join the Knights Templar, all of the men of the garrison were hanged for standing against the king. After the siege, Henry demanded that the castle be dismantled. William de Beauchamp was forbidden to rebuild the castle and instead built a house on the site. To this day, nothing really remains of the castle except for the motte or mound on which it sat. It is said that if you were to stand on the mound at night and listen closely, you would actually hear the creaking of the gallows where Fawkes' men were hanged. The Golden Pheasant Pub. In the town of Biggleswade sits a pub called the Golden Pheasant. Originally, when it was built in 1753, it was a cottage owned by an Elizabeth Hawkins. It was converted and licensed as a beer house in 1851 and gained a full license in 1855. A man named James Melrose was the first licensee. Witness reports from visiting the pub had told of singing coming from the bar when it's empty, as well as footsteps from an area where there was nobody around to make them. The King's Arms Pub. Another pub, but this one is considered to be one of the most haunted places in the county. A busy former coaching inn that has been a public house since the 1230s, officially. Unofficially, it is said that the building now stands on the site that was once a morgue, and that the coffin-shaped trapdoor above the bar was apparently where the bodies were lowered into the morgue from the mortuary above. The pub has at least 2 ghosts that have been seen. One was spotted for the first time in 1994 by an employee of the pub when he was down in the cellar. According to the witness, it was the apparition of an old man wearing a short-sleeved white shirt. Other members of staff have said they always sense that they are being watched whenever they go into the cellar by themselves. They also blame this ghost for throwing buckets around in the cellar and for stripping down the beer taps after they have been cleaned and left to dry after the pub has closed for the night. There is also supposed to be the spirit of a young man who haunts the upper floor of the pub. He is heard walking around upstairs as the floorboards creak overhead and the pub dog will start barking. People have seen old nails that were once used by meal forgers many years ago be tossed around the bar. And one woman, who stayed overnight at the pub with her 2 children, woke up in the morning to find small handmade rings left by the children's beds and an adult-sized one by her own bed. Woburn Abbey. Woburn Abbey, a country house and seat to the Dukes of Bedford, is located east of the village of Woburn and set within Woburn Park. The fact that it has Abbey in the title comes from its origins as a Cistercian abbey, which was founded in 1145 on the site. However, the Cistercian community was dissolved by Henry VIII in 1538, so the abbey was left to decay. In 1547, the estate at Woburn became the seat of the Russell family and the Dukes of Bedford, and in around 1630, Francis Russell, the 4th Earl of Bedford, started building a manor house on the site, demolishing, incorporating, and rebuilding parts of the abbey in the design. The house was rebuilt a second time during the years 1747 and 1761, and now nothing of the original abbey remains of the design, which before had a monastic style. After the Second World War, the house was found to have dry rot, which led to half the house being demolished. When the 12th Duke of Bedford died in 1953, his son, the 13th Duke, was left with death duties into the millions of pounds. In order to try and pay off these duties, the Duke decided to open the abbey up to the public in 1955. The plan worked, and within the first 10 years of it being open, almost all the death duties were paid off. In 1970, Woburn Safari Park was opened on the grounds of the abbey. However, Tussauds decided to buy Alton Towers instead, and built a large theme park on the grounds there. The 15 Duke still continues to run the site, which is listed as a Grade 1 property. With a history spanning almost 1,000 years on this site, is it any wonder that some of its occupants still remain? One of the oldest spectres seems to be that of a monk from the original abbey. It is said that he was killed during the Reformation due to being against King Henry VIII's marriage to Anne Boleyn, hanged from an oak tree not far from the church. He is seen in various parts of the house, but most often in the crypt. A lot of the paranormal experiences in the house take place in the areas that are not open to the public. One story that was recounted by the 13th Duke of Bedford, who had to stop watching TV in a certain room due to the doors constantly opening, one after another, as if someone came into the room, walked through, and then left. One of the duchesses is also said to haunt the property. The wife of the 11th Duke was a record-breaking aviator who disappeared off the English coast when flying solo in 1937. She is said to haunt a summer house that is located in a private part of the park, or more a feeling of great sadness lingers there that is often associated with her. The ghost of the 6th Duchess is also said to linger, but this time in the reception rooms of the house. Do you live in Bedfordshire? Have you ever visited there? If so, do you have any of your own spooky stories to tell? Did you experience a phantom hand touch your face at Woburn Abbey, or maybe come face to face with Black Tom? If so, please do tell us, as I would love to hear from you. If I can gather enough, I will be doing a special video of local ghost stories from each county, so don't be afraid to send in your own. If you enjoyed this video, then please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Also, if there's any stories you feel I may have missed, or you would like for me to look into, please do leave a comment below. It all helps out the channel. I also have a Patreon account where just for a few dollars a month I will be adding extra stories from my own collection of ghost books that I've not been able to cover in these videos. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I shall see you in the next one.